You ever cut into something beautiful, expecting sweetness, only to find rot hidden inside? That's what it felt like on my wedding day. We were standing there hand in hand, the cameras flashing, everyone waiting for us to slice into this perfect white cake that had been the centerpiece of the reception all night. 3 tiers, frosted smooth, little flowers, sculpted in sugar, topped with a gold forever sign. It looked flawless. But when I bent down to steady the knife at the base, I saw it, small, almost invisible to anyone not looking for it, carved right into the bottom layer where the fondant curved toward the stand. 2 initials, not mine and hers and his. She had done it, my bride, on the cake meant to symbolize our beginning, and the whole world clapped while my heart stopped. Do you know what it feels like to suddenly be frozen in front of 100 people, everyone cheering, laughing, raising glasses, and you're staring at a crime scene no one else can see? The knife in my hand trembled. For a split second, I thought maybe my eyes were playing tricks. Maybe it was just a random scratch, the baker's mark, anything. But no, the letters were too clean, too deliberate. 2 letters side by side, pressed deep enough to leave no doubt. I knew his initials because I'd seen them before, on her phone screen when she'd smiled at messages she wouldn't let me read. On the inside jokes she brushed off as just a friend. And now, on our wedding cake, I swear I felt the blood drain from my face. She must have noticed because she squeezed my hand a little tighter, her nails digging into my skin as if she knew what I'd seen, and was daring me to ruin the moment. The crowd started chanting, "Cut the cake, cut the cake," and I forced a smile sliced through the frosting, and fed her a piece like nothing was wrong. Cameras flashed, people laughed. I tasted sugar and bile all at once. The rest of the night blurred. I shook hands, thanked guests, danced when I had to, but I wasn't there. My mind kept circling back to that one question. Why would she do it? Out of everything, out of every place to hide her betrayal. Why the cake? Was it arrogance? Was it a secret signal to him, hidden in plain sight, knowing no one would look closely? Or was it some twisted joke, carving the truth into the very thing meant to celebrate our unity? I couldn't confront her then, not in front of everyone, not with her parents beaming and mine glowing with pride. So I smiled through the speeches, through the photos, through the last dance, all while the initials burned in my mind like they were carved into me instead of the cake. When we finally got back to the suite, the silence between us was deafening. She kicked off her shoes, loosened her hair and said, "That was perfect, wasn't it?" I stared at her. Whose initials? Her body stiffened, just for a second. Then she turned, wide-eyed, feigning confusion. "What are you talking about?" "On the cake." My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. At the bottom, 2 letters, not mine, his. For a moment, she looked like a cornered animal, calculating whether to run or fight. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. "You're imagining things, probably just a scrap." But I wasn't imagining it. I'd seen the letters clear as day, and her laugh, the forced, brittle sound of it, told me everything I needed to know. I didn't press further that night. Something in me shut down. I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling while she slept beside me, her breath steady and shallow. I kept replaying every sign I'd ignored. The late-night texts she brushed off, the way she locked her phone when I walked into the room, the sudden work trips that never quite added up. I'd noticed, God help me, I'd noticed, but I'd buried it all under the weight of love, of trust, of not wanting to believe the woman I was about to marry could do this to me. The cake was my confirmation, my carved-in frosting truth. In the days after, I went digging, quietly. I wasn't going to accuse her again without proof, not when she could just laugh it off. So I paid attention. I watched her phone habits. I listened when she made calls in the other room. I noticed when her stories didn't line up. And little by little, the puzzle came together. There was a man. There had always been a man. He wasn't new. He wasn't a fling. He was woven into her life like a shadow I hadn't wanted to see. The initials on the cake, they were theirs, a private symbol carved into the most public day of our lives. Maybe it was her way of rebelling against the lie she was living. Maybe it was her way of keeping him with her, even as she said "I do" to me. I don't know. What I do know is that it shattered something in me, that night, that would never heal the same way again. And that's just the beginning. Because the fallout, the confrontation, the unraveling of the marriage before it even began, The way our families reacted when the truth came out. That was worse than anything carved into cake. When I think back on it now, the most haunting part wasn't the initials themselves. It was the silence that followed. After I asked her that night, after she laughed too hard, after I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while she slept beside me, it was the silence that swallowed me whole. Because silence is where your brain starts filling in the gaps. And the gaps are always uglier than the truth you already know. The morning after the wedding, our families gathered for brunch. Smiles, toasts, leftover champagne. She sat beside me, laughing, squeezing my hand under the table like nothing was wrong. I played along, but every time I lifted my glass I saw the reflection of those carved initials in the bubbles. And every time she leaned in, I wondered if she smelled like him. I lasted 2 weeks before I broke. 2 weeks of pretending. 2 weeks of lying to myself. 2 weeks of analyzing every text she sent, every shift in her tone, every moment she turned away too quickly. I told myself, get proof, don't accuse without proof, and proof came, as it always does when you look long enough. She left her phone on the counter one night while she showered. Notifications lit up the screen, a name I'd seen before, one she'd always brushed off, as just a friend. My stomach knotted. I opened the thread. Dozens of messages scrolled up. Him calling her my love, her sending him pictures in outfits she never wore for me. And then, the one that broke me. A photo of the cake, our wedding cake. A close-up of the initials she'd carved into the bottom tier. Captioned, "You were with me the whole time." That was it. No more silence. When she stepped out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her hair, I was sitting on the couch with her phone in my hand. "You carved his initials into our wedding cake." My voice was so calm it scared even me. Her face drained of color. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "It wasn't what you think." I cut her off. "It's exactly what I think. You stood there in front of our families, in front of God, and you carved another man's name into the cake that was supposed to celebrate us." Tears filled her eyes. She reached for me, but I pulled back like her touch was acid. "I love you," she whispered. "No," I said. "You love him. You've loved him. This whole time. You married me for the show, for the security, for the picture-perfect life. But him, he's who you've been carrying in secret. Him, you couldn't leave behind, not even on our wedding day." The fight that followed was brutal. She denied. She cried. She blamed me. She said I didn't give her enough attention, that I worked too much, that she felt lonely. But every excuse was another knife. Because loneliness doesn't carve initials into cake. Loneliness doesn't send selfies in lingerie to another man while your husband lies next to you. That isn't loneliness. That's choice. When I told our families the fallout was nuclear, her parents begged me to reconsider, to forgive. Mine were furious, protective, ready to throw her out themselves. Friends picked sides. Some called me strong for walking away. Others whispered that maybe I was too harsh, that maybe people make mistakes. But I knew better. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is saying something cruel in anger. This wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern. I filed for annulment. She fought it at first, then gave in when the evidence piled too high. Screenshots, the photo of the cake, even messages from friends who admitted they'd known but hadn't wanted to get involved. As for him, he reached out once, sent me a message that just said, "You were never enough for her." I didn't reply, because the truth is, she was never enough for me. Not the real me, not the me who deserved honesty and loyalty. It's been a year now. The scar is still there. Not on my skin but in the way I flinch when someone says the word forever. But scars aren't weaknesses. They're proof you survived. I survived watching my bride carve another man's initials into our wedding cake. I survived the whispers, the humiliation, the collapse of the life I thought I was building. And I came out sharper, stronger, unwilling to ever settle for a love that has to hide in shadow. Sometimes I think back to that moment, standing there with the knife in my hand, cameras flashing, everyone cheering. I think about how I smiled, how I fed her cake while bile rose in my throat. And I realized something. That was the last time I pretended. The last time I played along. Because life's too short to swallow poison and call it sweetness. So yeah, Our wedding cake had their initials carved into the bottom layer by her. But if you ask me now, I'll tell you, I'd rather have seen those initials early than live blind to them forever. Because nothing tastes as bitter as betrayal you refuse to acknowledge. And now I cut my own cake. And I make damn sure the only initials on it are mine.